Okay, thank you again.
To add three.
Oh yes, you had some questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
two of them I think John Lee already asked you.
Yeah.
The first question I wanted to ask is about like John Lee in his book, and he always tells that one of the key things that Korea should do to survive and to not follow Japan's path is to become more kind of strong in finance department, or
Yes.
to be maybe a financial hub in Asia.
Yes.
Like there's Hong Kong, Shanghai, even India is aiming for it, but
Yes.
he thinks that Seoul needs to be
Yes.
the next Asian hub. But
Yes.
the thing is that lots of even young generation have this kind of weird, what should I say, like misconcept about dividing capitals, like foreign capitals, domestic, like Korean's capitals, and that kind of misconception is really a big barrier for Seoul to be the next Asia's financial hub. So I wanted to ask you, like, what would be a good approach to explain it to our next generation that Seoul or Korea as a big country
Yes.
should be more open to finance
Yes.
and to be more flexible about capital?
Yes.
So
Of course,
that's your opinion about
Yeah.
it?
No, I think it's an extraordinarily important point, and John is absolutely right. And I'll give you one historical example, and that is the country that I originally come from, England. Those of you who remember your history, England once upon a time was a major imperial power with the British Empire across the world. And over the years, other countries grew and the relative importance of England declined. And then you had the First World War and the Second World War. And so then England became really quite a small or middle-sized country. But the most successful and surviving industry in England is the finance industry. The City of London remains the most important international financial capital of the world. New York is very important. New York has the benefit, though, of being the financial capital of the United States as well. That doesn't help England. What has helped the City of London survive is that it is recognized as the international financial capital of the world. But it is located in the West. And so the opportunity, in my mind, exists in Asia. I have never understood why Japan, after its extraordinary industrial success
That's right. Yeah.
in the
that's right.
60s and 70s, Japan, it would have been natural, using the British example, to convert its industrial success into becoming the financial capital of Asia, particularly because while Hong Kong had the benefit of the British heritage, under the law, we all knew that one day Hong Kong was going to return to China, and as it turned out, it went back to China sooner than expected. So Hong Kong always had that negative. And for whatever reasons, and I think the biggest explanation for why Japan didn't evolve as a financial center was not because the people didn't have the imagination. It was because of government regulation. And because of the Bank of Japan, very conservative, they wanted to, and the Ministry of Finance, the power of the bureaucrats. And the democratic change of government doesn't happen very often in Japan. It is a democracy. But I believe they missed an opportunity to build on their industrial strength. And I am a long-term bear on China. I do not think that authoritarian countries are always interested in maintaining the status quo.
Power.
The people in power are frightened of losing power.
Right.
And so they stifle innovation, they stifle change. And so China, given its extraordinary size and industrial power, should be developing a successful financial sector, but it's not.
They're ruining the power with Hong Kong now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Right.
They could have decided to build Hong Kong, but instead they've ruined it.
Right.
And the within China itself, again, there's far too much regulation, and there's no you have capital controls in China. So as soon as you have capital controls on the flow, you can no longer become an international financial center. So the one major competitor that Seoul has to becoming the financial center of Asia is Singapore. And Singapore knows that. They're smart enough. And they are trying to become, already we know many companies and people are moving from Hong Kong to Singapore.
Right.
But the difference between Singapore and Korea is that Singapore is just a small city-state. It's not a real country. And it doesn't have Korea's population. So I think if I were advising the Korean government, I would be saying that as a long-term strategic economic objective for the country, for the development of the country, you not only should you emphasize financial services anyway as an industry domestically, and given the level of Korea's sophistication in artificial intelligence and in advanced technology and so forth, you have all the raw materials to become a leading financial services country, and as a result of that, becoming the leading financial service center in Asia. The opportunity is there. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yes. I'm trying to telling people that Korea should be the hub of financial, in Asia, financial hub.
And if the big financial companies are not willing to do it, then small and mid-sized companies, because the beauty of the internet and of digital technology is that you don't need branch networks to be a successful bank.
Right.
You can be a mobile bank. You can
and
be a virtual bank.
Small, medium-sized, asset management companies. Anybody can set up.
Yes.
In Korea. So.
And I think it shoots the Korean character, of impatience, of doing things, of doing things quickly.
Right.
That whole entrepreneurial
So as long
spirit.
as the people understand this is the importance of this financial sector, then I think the Korea will be, to have another cycle of.
Oh, absolutely. The potential
flourishing.
is huge.
Yeah. So education, financial education is.
Yes.
It's absolutely needed. What's your other?
My second question
is
that as John Lee said, his next goal in his next 10 years is to promote and to support the women CEO for asset management.
Yes.
And that is quite a unique thing for him to do it, because in Korea right now, Korean society is about the gender issue. It has a really big bias on each genders.
Yes.
And so I think maybe because of that, I think lots of companies and lots of investment companies are talking about ESG,
yes,
but never about social.
Yeah.
They skip the S.
Really? In
So-
Korea?
Yeah, in Korea. So
Yes.
like even our
Yeah.
woman fund manager always tells us she wants to invest more, but to her there aren't that much companies which suits her.
The standard,
Standard.
Yeah, yeah.
So like in Korea still I don't think not many people are speaking up in terms of like female empowerment and finance together.
Yes, yes,
So I was just wondering like what's your experience or what's your perspective
yes.
towards it on the financial industry?
Yes, yes. Well, it's interesting. Even though in the West and particularly in the United States, people are making an effort. Companies are making an effort to employ more women. The financial industry still does not employ an equal number of women. Far from it, and it's very unfortunate. In the old firm where John and I used to work at Scudder actually did pretty well in terms, our senior economist was a woman, the head of our HR department was a woman, we had some women lawyers and Katie Quirk, you may remember.
Sure.
And I was proud of, we were better than most, maybe better than all financial companies in that respect. But however, whatever the challenge is in Korea, and I know it's a big one, it remains a challenge still in the Western world. Japan's probably as bad as Korea in terms of employment of women. I don't know, but that's my impression.
Korea is the worst.
There's the worst. Okay. But now what's also interesting, but I can't quote you the article, but not so long ago, it was in Western markets. There are suggestions that women are better portfolio managers.
Yeah. I believe that. They are much longer term investor than the men.
And maybe it has to do with nurturing and the responsibility to the family.
Right.
And
looking at the fundamentals.
and worrying about protecting people and protecting, the motherly instinct.
That's right.
Of looking after the family wealth and so forth. There's, I think, an element of caution. The whole business of women having a sense of the need to protect their children, which is a sort of a natural sort of instinct. So, I mean, I can't prove it, but to me, it makes sense that some of the natural instincts of women may be better suited to portfolio management.
That's why I'm encouraging Korean women to set up the asset management company.
Absolutely, and test it out, improve it.
Yeah, but Korea is almost less than 5%. Women CEO. In financial industry. So,
but it's probably the same in the US in terms of CEOs.
In terms of CEOs, maybe, but in terms of number of professionals,
it's high.
It's much higher.
It is much higher.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember in Scudder days, many female, very knowledgeable,
very
capable asset managers, fund managers, female.
Yes.
But Korea is very low in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
My last question, actually, I would like to combine two questions.
Sure.
One is that I would like to ask you about what kind of advice you could give to the young generation in Korea who dreams of being in Wall Street or in Korea's Wall Street or being a finance professional.
Yes.
And the second question is that me personally watching you too seems like beginning from the Scudder's experience, the cultural, what do you call that? The cultural atmosphere of the company really defines how the company goes.
Very good.
I think that the reporting line, the very slim reporting lines,
and you also told that it's flexible in Lazard.
Right.
And I assume that you have 50 years of experience, but the employees, how they treat you is really friendly and stuff. That's really kind of not really used to me since I've been in Samsung. So those kind of cultural atmosphere, like, could you tell the importance, especially in finance?
Yes.
Because, like, as you quoted in the Japanese restaurant, you said that our business is thinking business. But
Yes.
that quotation, I've never heard such a thing back in Korea,
Okay.
especially finance industry. So
Yes.
could you kind of elaborate more?
Sure. So there's a number of very interesting subjects you raise here. I mean, starting with the last one, the cultural one is a very difficult one to change. From my understanding of Korea, it is still a very high, and I'm generalizing, it's still a very hierarchical organized, the way it's organized. And I don't know how you change that. Changing culture is a generational thing. It takes time and time and time, a long time, and it takes education. I think starting with education is probably how you start. I mean, I don't know enough about Korean schools, but I'm guessing that probably girls don't get the same treatment as boys in school.
In the school, yes, the same treatment, but
Yes.
after they graduate.
It's after
Yes,
they graduate
yeah.
that it changes. But it's strange in a way, because as we've discussed, the birth rate in Korea is so low now. So it's not as if you can use the old excuse, oh well, women's job is to have children and to raise children. There's no room for them. There's no need for them to enter the labor force. Their job is to be housewives. I mean, that is irrelevant these days. So you can't use that excuse.
Right.
So I don't know how you make that cultural change, but let's assume that somehow, magically, the women are treated the same way when they finish school and they go to university, and their families give them the same support for female children as for male children. They get the same secondary, tertiary education. So they're equally well educated from an academic point of view. So then, in terms of advice to people who are interested in working in the financial world, I think the starting point is you must have a natural interest, a natural instinct. It's just because it has a reputation of being a place where people are well paid, that's not a good enough reason. There are other activities where also you can be well paid. But you have to be, I think you have to be excited by the extraordinary, what I would call sort of magic of the capitalist system, whereby capital gets collected in the capitalist system and is invested in opportunities which are represented by groups of entrepreneurs who are looking to raise capital to achieve something. Because that's the basis of our capitalist system. And you have to be passionate about that. You have to be interested in that. Whether it is, I actually would say the interest goes beyond simply the financial world. I would say the interest has to be in capitalist creation. And you might be more of an entrepreneur, someone who wants to create a business, rather than someone who wants to work in the process of collecting the capital. The two are so closely intertwined that as a young person, I wouldn't actually make that distinction. I would study, I would pursue studies that would enable me to go in both directions, and then just see what happens. My father was a civil servant, so I got no encouragement at home to go into the financial world. And it took a long time for my father to understand what I did. I would try to explain to him, and he would have, no interest. So I think it's important for young people to be honest with themselves as to what they think they want to do, what strengths they have, what weaknesses they have. I think some of the qualities you need in the financial world is you have to be smart. It's a very competitive business. It does attract lots of clever people. So that's number one. And unfortunately, not everybody is smart, and that's just life. That's the way it is. You've got to be willing to work hard. You've got to be willing to. You mustn't be shy to express your own opinion, to develop your own opinion, and be willing to disagree. I mean, I had a wonderful partner that John knows well, William Holzer.
William Holzer, yes.
He was a dear friend of mine, and we worked together for many years. We used to have the most wonderful disagreements, and that was great, you know. And we enjoyed the engagement and so forth. So it's very important to have the self-confidence to argue a point of view that might be a minority one. And again, you have to be aware of whether you have that ability and that self-confidence to be able to do that. I think those are some of the characteristics.
If I can add,
yes, please.
Trying to differentiate yourself from others, from the crowd.
Yes.
Not necessarily following the crowd.
Yes.
That you have your own interest, your own opinion, and ask questions.
Yes. Asking questions is so important.
Yes.
So, now, not to be shy to ask questions. Going back to Willie, Willie always used to ask the most wonderful questions when we were doing research.
Willie will be in my book as well.
Yes,
So
great.
At the time, he was asking very strange questions to the government officials and the Korean Bank of Korea. Willie, you know, it's very outrageous questions, but actually after 5 years later, wow, that was a very good question actually. Right. After all,
no, he was a brilliant man. Another characteristic which is very important is humility. Very important to be aware of your own limitations. The biggest mistakes people can make is from being overconfident.
Right.
And
arrogance.
Right. Those are, you know, when I'm interviewing people, those are immediately alarm bells that go off.
Oh,
people who think they know all the answers.
Right.
You know.
Especially stock market, people think that they can predict the next week how the stock market will behave.
I think actually portfolio management is one of the most humbling professions in the world.
They know their limitations.
Right. You have to respect the market. You have to acknowledge that there's a lot you don't know. And even after all my years of experience, you know, I keep reminding myself, and I keep reminding younger people, you just don't know what's going to happen. And the more you think you know what's going to happen, the bigger the mistakes you're going to make.
That's a very good point.
You know, it's
be humble.
Be humble, and listen. Be humble, listen, ask questions.
Yeah, Willie was very humble.
He was such a humble man.
Yes.
Such a humble guy.
Yeah. But, wow, that's wonderful. After 10 years, that finally I was able to have an interview like this.
Yeah, it's great.
I think our Korean audience will love this, the conversation. This is very important. That young generation, they never had a chance to hear your opinion like this.
Yeah,
they're all short term.
Yeah.
You know how you make $100,000 in 3 months.
Yeah.
How to trade.
Yeah.
That's our main topic all the time.
Yeah, and I made some very strong statements in what I was saying, when I was talking.
And many Koreans still don't really get the two words synced up, like finance and philosophy.
No,
they don't get the
then there's no connection.
What you two talk about is like, it feels like to me like a philosophical Bible kind of text to me. And I think it will be really kind of
this is much more than I expected for you taking your time.
No,
I thought it was 10 minutes in a coffee shop.
I think after this YouTube, when you come back to Korea, lots of people will ask for you.
They will recognize when they recognize you in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
But it's a good sense. I think doing a good thing for the country, Korean people.
Sure.
That.
I think about the financial capital, like the Asian hub perspective. Like, I didn't even know the competitiveness about our country compared to Singapore and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But we do have potential.
Oh yeah, it's there. It really is there. And then there's I didn't say it, but there is, John knows, because he's heard me say this, and it's always dangerous to make broad generalizations, but I believe that if you look at Korea's history, the fact that you have survived as an independent country with such unfriendly and militarily powerful neighbors like the Japanese, like the Chinese, for thousands of years, tells you something very special about Korean people and their quality. And I think you are, I'll use the word, a superior race. And I think it has to do with...
Well, we have to record this.
Make sure
and I do think that Koreans are a superior race. And it's a controversial thing to say, but I'm very conscious of the fact that you have more PhDs per thousand of population of any other country in the world. And PhD is a hell of an academic achievement. And the fact that you've managed to survive thousands of years against bigger, stronger, more powerful neighbors tells you something about fundamental characteristic of the Korean people.
Actually,
look at the success of in terms of modern industry, music.
That's what I'm saying.
Music and soap,
K-pop
and TV soap operas.
K-food, K-movie.
Absolutely, these are modern industries.
Now K-finance.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I'm promoting to Korean people. Now, next time, Korea finance.
Yeah. And look at the success of Korean immigrants in this country.
Right.
Okay?
That's right, yeah.
You can look at, I'm not going to mention the countries, but you can look at immigrants from other countries, whether it's from Europe or whether it's from South America. There isn't the same, in aggregate, commercial, economic success. There is, it's a very sensitive issue when you start talking about making generalizations about race. But let's face the facts. It's really, I love Koreans.
Why not?
Unbelievable.
It's actually 3 hours earlier than.
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Well done.
Oh my God.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're being filmed on John's YouTube program.
Turn around then.
Yeah, sure.
How do you know each other? Colleagues?
I was his assistant.
Oh,
Yeah.
Long time ago.
So where are you now? Are you in Korea or are you back
Yeah, in
here?
Korea, visiting.
Are you just visiting?
For Nick Brad and for the
That
filming
is
for my
awesome.
YouTube channel.
Oh,
So you're gonna be on my channel.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. 400,000 people.
Oh my goodness. It's so good to see you. So did you guys have lunch?
We had lunch.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, and then at the end of lunch I said, hey, let's go back to the office. So plans
Awesome.
changed.
Yeah.
So, like, remember when you took me to Wu Lang Yi?
Who?
Wu Lang Yi.
Chinese restaurant.
Ah, yeah.
I remember we had the big fish. We
Yeah,
had
right.
so much food. And it was so
Used to
much
remember
fun.
that.
It was like take it home.
Yeah.
I remember food. It was delicious too.
Great.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So how are things?
I
Good?
expect to see you here.
Yeah, 12 years.
I know.
It's been 12 years, right, Nick?
Really? Time flies,
May,
doesn't
June,
it?
July, August, September, October,
12 years,
November,
yeah.
December.
Mm.
It's like 12 and a half years now. I can't believe it seemed like yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Looking north,
The Central Park.
the Central Park. And then you have the George Washington Bridge over there. Sorry, the Triborough. The George Washington Bridge. That's right, the Triborough Bridge.
Yeah.
Over there.
How about this new building?
Yeah, these are new buildings. Very ugly, in my opinion.
It's blocking the view.
yeah.
And the other one, this the apartment there. That's
Yes.
so high.
And that's the Hudson River on the left there. And we cover the whole floor, so we can walk all the way around.
Oh, 360 degrees.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't see you before. Merry Christmas. And what I like about this view here is it's hard to see, but down there, sticking out into the water,
It's
you
a
see a
house.
little white. You see a little
Yeah.
white, and that's not the model. It's a Concorde. Remember the old supersonic
Oh yeah.
passenger plane,
From London to
London to New York and Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one model. I mean, it's a real one. Is sitting there, and that's a museum of various aircrafts and so forth. So it's quite
Yeah,
cool.
Concorde. I remember
Remember
that.
the Concorde?
Actually, I was coming from London. Then just overbooked. And this is very thing. Do you have to take